Michelle Malkin. Michelle, good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Did you watch all 5 hours yesterday?
I did.
What did you learn? Anything, Michelle?
I learned that it was Hillary 2016 yesterday on Capitol Hill, and that it wasn't just the fawning Democrats who were enabling this circus, but there were many, unfortunately, many sycophantic Republicans who helped as well.
It did seem like there was a lot of speechifying, and in some cases, I didn't actually hear any questions. If folks out there had lives, had jobs, had things to do yesterday, and you missed her testimony, here's Hillary Clinton versus predominantly the Republican senators.
We were misled that there were supposedly protests and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that that was not the fact. And the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
Great question. What difference does it make, Michelle?
With all due respect, which is one of those Beltway weasel phrases, you know it means the exact opposite. With all due respect, of course, it makes all the difference in the world. And I think there were a couple of Republicans on both the House and Senate side that tried to make that clear. But I think there were more Republicans who squandered the opportunity to really stick it, not only to Hillary and the State Department, but to this entire lying administration. Now, I understand that there are a lot of staffers and a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill who have been so steeped in this that they don't realize that the basics still need to get out to the American public. And that was the missed opportunity, I think. A lot of times, especially with low information voters, repetition is key. And the key questions about how this administration lied and lied and lied to the American public and used this YouTube video as a ruse really needed to get out there. But there were, I think you could count on the number of fingers on your hand how many times Republicans mentioned the video.
Yeah, but not only that. I mean, we also
did they take an oath of office not to mention it yesterday?
And there were other questions that weren't answered. I mean, we found out that Secretary Clinton said that she hadn't read Ambassador Stevens' warnings that were sent, where he said that the security situation is deteriorating. They didn't, as far as I can tell, press to find out exactly who did, why that person is still in their post, what she knew about it. Here are some of the questions. We have a montage of those that were asked.
Had I been president at the time, I would have relieved you of your post.
The State Department is notorious for wasteful spending and continues to have misplaced funding priorities.
The answers, frankly, that you've given this morning are not satisfactory to me.
It is not all politics. It's how we do things here to make it better, trying to get to the nitty-gritty.
Madam Secretary, you let the consulate become a death trap, and that's national security malpractice.
Okay, correction, those weren't questions. Those were, lawmakers making statements, and it happened on both sides of the aisle. What did you think?
Well, look, if she was going to exploit that whole platform to make her statements and grandstand, I think it's equal opportunity for some of the Republicans to do so. I think that there should have just been a better balance about the grilling versus the grandstanding. And these questions about the DHS report that was available to them within days that made it clear that it was not some sort of YouTube protest and the proxy and all of that facade, as well as the question you raised about the cables that she didn't read. This seems to be a theme with this administration. You'll remember it's the same kind of excuse that was invoked during Fast and Furious. Eric Holder, even though the buck stops with him and he's in charge, of course, gave the same excuse. I didn't read what was addressed to me.
Yeah, right. Thousands come in. Hey, let's talk about something else that's going on. Guns is still a major issue, which, by the way, on a side note, could divide the Democratic Party because a lot don't want any of these gun rules that the president's putting forward and will not win re-election if they support them. But that's for another day. Right now, there's a lawmaker proposing a bill that will require parents to inform the schools if they, in fact, own a gun. How significant is this to you?
I think it's another dangerous encroachment of the nanny state. And it's an undermining of the sacred relationship between a parent and the child. And this, of course, is an ongoing thing, not only in educational matters, but in health matters as well. And these gun grabbers are using any excuse to expand the role of government in people's lives and turn parents against their own children, and vice versa, because you have this encouragement among many left-wing educators and activists and politicians to encourage children to snitch on their own parents about this issue.
And we're not just talking about going out and getting an illegal gun permit, which, you know, most people do, but part of this bill requires parents to notify the school district that they have a gun. Tell the school district they own a gun.
Yes. Yes, and the slippery slope here, of course, is this is not merely discrimination against law-abiding gun owners who are parents. What it is viewpoint and political discrimination and political persecution, no doubt about it.
Michelle, let's talk, speaking of schools, about President Obama's plan for public schools in this country. It's called Common Core. He's setting standards. It's part of the Race to the Top program. What do we know about Common Core standards?
Well, a lot of parents and teachers and educators out there are learning more and more about it. It was really stealthily funded and seeded through the Race to the Top and federal stimulus programs, which were basically bribes to get states to sign on to these bogus standards before they were even written. So there were some core constitutional issues here about local control. But from my perspective, and the reason why I'm devoting much more of my time in my syndicated column and also in my blog to this issue over the next several weeks and months, is that it is an undermining of academic excellence in this country. It is a trend of the left to undermine Western civilization requirements, core math learning and science learning, and this is all under the guise of raising standards, but it does anything but that.
Sure.
Obama and Arnie Duncan at the Department of Education are primarily responsible, but unfortunately, once again, there are some Republican governors who've capitulated to this, and business interests that don't know what the heck is going on, that think that they're signing on to better standards for students and an improved workforce, but are going to get a much more dumbed down population.
How about in the District of Columbia? Did you hear the story that apparently the high school students, they may never actually take a government class in the seat of our government? Anything, I don't know. I'm sure they want people to know how the government works, but it does seem ironic that in Washington, D.C., they wouldn't teach government.
Well, it's complicated.
To high school kids.
It's complicated.
Well, it's all of a piece, and my bottom line on all of this is that after the election, there were a lot of Republicans and conservatives said that the real problem in this country is the low information voter. Yeah. Oh, it's much bigger than that. It's the no knowledge student that's the problem.
Let's make them lower information voters.
All right, Twitchy.com.
We'll be reading your columns to find out more about the standards. Thanks so much, Michelle.
You bet. Take care.